Hello and welcome to my spoiler review of SpiderMan Across the Spider-Verse, where we have so much to discuss. But where I want to start is with the tweet that I put up when I first got out of my press screening, and that's the shocking similarities between this movie and the upcoming The Flash, just 2 weeks apart. That's nuts, man, especially the third act of Across the Spider-Verse. And if you've seen the movie, I bet you're furiously typing now how much you agree with me. And as I pointed out in my non-spoiler review, Phil Lord and Chris Miller wrote one of the original treatments for the Flash movie, only to end up leaving that film, and then here they are as the co-writers with one other individual on this movie. I can't believe they took their ideas with them. I guess Warner Brothers should have thought of that, maybe. It's crazy. All right, so here we learn that if canon events are altered, the universe in which they are altered might be destroyed. In this case, glitched out of existence using the Spider-Verse visuals. This has happened already to this version of Miguel OHara when he tried to take the place of a happier version of himself who was killed in an alternate universe. He tried to step in and live that Miguel OHara's life, only to see that his daughter there glitch away as a result. That's how it's illustrated emotionally. And then when Miles saves the Captain Stacy of Spider-Man India's universe, Mumbattan becomes in danger of glitching out of existence as well. But that's not all. It turns out that Miles, when he is told about the importance of Captain Stacy's death in the canon for all of them, he realizes, it hits him like a ton of bricks, and it hit me too, I did not see this coming, that his father is about to make captain. Perhaps because this never happened in the comics, but he's like, wait a minute, a captain has to die? My dad's about to be captain. Great misdirect, because that of course was the reason for the party. Really well done. But he's told by the Spider Society that he has to let his father die. Because that's one of his canon events, just like him losing his Uncle Aaron, it stands in for losing Uncle Ben. But Miles, much like the Flash's Barry Allen, doesn't want to let his parent die. Barry's mom, Miles' dad, even if that means dire consequences for their universe or even the entire multiverse. They don't care at first. We'll see what each of them decides. Now, Miles manages to escape the Spider Society, which is starting to seem like an evil organization, quite frankly, with their cold and calculating efforts to protect the multiverse. By the way, they're basically the TVA. I guess Amy Pascal couldn't get Kevin Feige to lend them to her. But they have a scary spider machine. This was very scary, very cool, which detects via the DNA of a specimen the universe where it came from, where it belongs. So that's how they send their prisoners back. And Miles has to use it to escape, to get home to his dad, to save his dad, because he's not a member of the Spider Society. He doesn't have a wristband that allows him to travel the multiverse. But, wrinkle! Turns out that his DNA has DNA from a different multiverse. Because, as was also revealed in the film, he was bitten by a spider. The number on that spider was not like coinciding with some kind of experiment or something. It was the universe that spider came from. The Spot, who was originally, it turns out, a villain in Alchemax, who worked with Olivia Octavius. I love that little wrinkle. But he reveals that they brought over this spider, and so they brought that from a different universe, and that's how this Miles got bitten, even though, of course, Peter Parker in this universe had also been bitten. That's why they were both able to exist here. But he has Universe 42 DNA. So he gets transported to that universe. That was great. The misdirect when Spider-Gwen entered his room and they weren't there, I was like, what's going on, man? It was great. And it's very Back to the Future Part 2, by the way, which people have said The Flash is a lot like that franchise. Because this Universe 42 never got a Spider-Man because their spider was stolen. So there, he discovers that it was his father who's killed, not Uncle Aaron, and that this Miles has become the Prowler, working with Uncle Aaron. And at the very end of the movie, we meet evil Miles Morales. In a shot, by the way, right out of Arcane. It was incredible. The swagger was just dripping off of Miles Morales. Prowler Miles Morales. I don't want to call him evil Miles Morales because that's an interesting situation here that I want to address. So we'll say Spider-Man Miles Morales and Prowler Miles Morales. All right, so it's just like The Flash, where they got two Barrys. And once you see The Flash, you'll see that the similarities go even further. But I don't want to ruin The Flash in the spoiler review of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. All right, so that's pretty amazing, but let's talk more about this movie. So first off, and why I love this twist so much. Now, first off, evil Miles Morales is something that has been explored in the comics, where he's not the Prowler. See, in the comics, Miles was from the Ultimate Universe. They had an Ultimate Story comics line, which actually did a lot to inspire the MCU. But it wasn't the 616. Eventually, Marvel Comics combined those two universes. But because Miles Morales originated in the Ultimate Universe, that means there is a Miles Morales in the 616. Turns out he's much older. He's an older version of the character, and he's like legit evil. No nuances we're about to discuss with the other situation. But here, in the comics, the 616 Miles Morales was never bitten by a spider. He's just a regular crime kingpin. It's a little more complex, but I'm telling you the most important stuff right now. But after his run-in with Miles Morales, Spider-Man from the Ultimate Universe, this 616 Miles Morales decided to go to the Ultimate Universe, made some supervillain friends, picked himself up a supervillain suit, which, by the way, runs on PIM particles, and took to calling himself Ultimatum. And he's supposed to have become one of Miles Morales' Spider-Man's top villains. Not really. I've only read a couple of this character's stories. I don't really think he worked out, and that's not what excites me about this development. So let me tell you what does. So in the original comic book, Brian Michael Bendis brilliantly gave Miles Morales a father who was in law enforcement with a S.H.I.E.L.D. background, actually. I loved that. And an uncle who is like a really cool criminal, who Miles gets along with really well. I think to illustrate the fork in the road where young men of color in particular often find themselves standing. Now, obviously, in the comics, Miles Morales ends up doing good, kind of going down his father's path. But he does have more sympathy for criminals like his uncle because he knows what happens there. He knows what can happen. And he sees his uncle in them. But with Across the Spider-Verse, now we will actually get to explore and contrast what would have happened if Miles had gone down the criminal path following in his Uncle Aaron's footsteps. To see that very real choice for a lot of real people, young people in real life, explored in an animated superhero comic book movie, which I think makes it very accessible. A little bit of sugar helps the medicine go down. I mean, this is not only fascinating, but groundbreaking, especially with this creative team, who I think are going to do the story right. I mean, I'm amazed Brian Michael Bendis managed to pull it off. But this team, I think, can do it right, because I think you don't want to have a situation like Nancy Reagan's Just Say No, where people are like, what do you know about it, Nancy? All right, and even though we just see him for a few moments, part 2 is coming. Prowler Miles Morales, and this was, again, a brilliant choice here. He is not a cartoonish villain. This is not a clear-cut example of good and bad. This is more an example of circumstance and opportunity, either being there or the lack of it. Oh my goodness, do you see where this is going? The Prowler Miles Morales' policeman father was killed. So he went with his Uncle Aaron, a criminal, but who was there for him and who loved him. He lives in a world without Spider-Man. He lives in a harsher world, and he didn't have the opportunities that Spider-Man Miles Morales had. He didn't get to go to Brooklyn Visions Academy, where in this movie, Miles is considering going to Princeton so he can further explore the multiverse himself. Although after this, I don't know how interested he's going to be in multiverse, but maybe. But look at the difference of these two roads diverged. I mean, it's fascinating. It's amazing. It's a superhero version of a very real life situation. And I think arguably very specific to the very community that Miles is supposed to represent, and I think does represent. So it's not only amazing, but it's powerful, it's groundbreaking, it's the kind of stuff I love to see in movies. And it's where pop culture can still really thrive and be taken seriously. Oh my God, I love it. All right, now, by the way, speaking of Uncle Aaron, what a great Easter egg to see Donald Glover back as the MCU Uncle Aaron / Prowler. His costume was not cool, though. But he's here a prisoner of the Spider Society, once again hinting that the MCU has its very own Miles Morales somewhere. Amy Pascal recently confirmed this in an interview. She's like, I'm making a live-action Miles Morales movie. And we're like, for the love of God, Amy, don't drop the ball on this, man. Although, speaking of that, while footage from both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's films is used, Tom Holland's movies are not featured here at all beyond Glover's cameo. Tom Holland really refuses to have anything to do with anything that isn't directly associated with the MCU. He's like, I'm at this point, I don't know. I'm like, come on. I mean, you're also Spider-Man. And I think the Spider-Verse movies are worthy of Tom Holland's involvement. Thank you very much. I mean, we're not asking him to be in Venom or something here. Although I think Venom while it did have some street cred, Venom 2 did a lot of damage to the brand. All right, so, and thank goodness that Spider-Verse held. All right, so other fun Easter eggs. J.K. Simmons back to do the voice of all J. Jonah Jamesons in all the universes. Loved it. And when the Spot, when he first discovers his powers, decides to go universe hopping, he stopped in the Venomverse, right? Fun, but I mean also, speaking of stepping up, Tom Hardy, you're too busy. You're making a Venom 3. You could have been here. And then also a Spider-Man Lego universe. That got a big laugh from my audience. And it's, of course, a fun nod to Chris Miller and Phil Lord's career because they, of course, did the Lego movies as well and now do these Spider-Verse movies. And it's Lego Spider-Man, by the way, who did a fun boop, beep, boop, 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 right, to contact the Spider Society and let them know that the Spot was becoming a problem. The Spot. Talk about a glow-up. From quirky comedic relief to genuinely terrifying at the end of the movie. And an artistic delight. Wow. See, the Spot didn't take too kindly to being jokingly called Villain of the Week, since he feels his and Miles Morales' fates are intertwined, because we discover again that he worked with Olivia Octavius at Miles Morales' Alchemex, and he helped bring over Spider 42, so he feels he's responsible for the creation of Miles Morales' Spider-Man. But then when Miles and Spider-Gwen and Peter B. Parker later destroyed the Collider and hit him with a bagel, by the way, that was Dr. Jonathan Owen. And again, another scientist turned Spider-Man villain, classic. That's when he became the Spot. I loved it. I thought it was great. And so to prove his worth as a villain, after going to different universes and blowing up their Alchemax colliders, that's what he's doing in Mumbattan, to enhance his powers, he decides that what he will do now is destroy all that Miles holds dear, which implicates that it will be the Spot who will kill Captain Jefferson Davis. It's so good. His name from the comics is Jefferson, but although here they're just calling him Jeff. I love this stuff. I think it all fits together beautifully. Mwah, chef's kiss. And because, so often something that at first seems like nothing and inconsequential can domino effect and spiral out of control to become the biggest threat of all. And again, the art was incredible in this whole movie. But I think the standouts to me, besides from Mumbattan, that was also incredible from an artistic perspective. But the later shots of the Spot, I was like, that's incredible. And then also old school comic book style animation for Ben O'Reilly, aka Scarlet Spider. Him in the rain, by the way, on Miles' apartment building. That was stunning. I was like, that is very nice. Another big theme in this movie, by the way, is parenting. With not just Miles' parents, but Gwen's father and Peter B. Parker, who is now a dad. Struggling with how to parent not just a child who is becoming an adult, but a superpowered one. Well, Mayday isn't becoming an adult anytime soon, but she's one heck of an Easter egg because she is, of course, one of the first non-Peter Parker Spider people to successfully be introduced in the comics, who fans embraced back in 1998. She was really popular for a while, like really popular. I wonder why she faded away. She had her own comic. It was a big deal. I don't really think this was before. Anytime some fan saw a female version of a character and freaked out. They loved Mayday. It's so sad. All right, maybe they can bring her back. All right, so I don't really think this movie answered the parent question, to be honest with you. Maybe it will in part 2. To me, the real thing that was illustrated was that it was such a big mistake for Gwen and Miles to keep their superhero identities a secret from the people who love and support them the most, in this case, their parents. They have great parents, particularly Miles' parents. They're great. Talk about superheroes, real-life superheroes. They're so great. I mean, Peter B. Parker and Mayday don't have any secrets from each other, and look how well they're getting along. I'm just saying. The pain that Miles causes his parents in particular was tough to watch. That was really hard for me. Because again, especially, his parents are such great people. I was like, tell them I'll tell him. Tell him. I mean, you can't do that for somebody else. But if I were Miles' friend, I'd be like, you need to do it now. Do it now. All right, what was fun to watch, though, was Miles growing up into an adult superhero. Oh, he's getting so big. He's all grown up. From better learning how to use his unique powers, the use of turning invisible, and his venom blasts were both fantastic here. That cliffhanger when he was about to blast the chain, I was like, oh, loved it. To realizing that crushing on Gwen made him vulnerable and that he missed what she was really trying to do, from trying to keep him from saving Spider-Man India's Captain Stacy to saving his own father. The way he was crushed and the way he addressed her once he found out, it broke my heart. It broke her heart. She's trying to make up for it. With the new band that she's brought together, aka her superhero team, which combines the awesome new spider people that we like in this film to the team from the first movie. They're back! Isn't that great? And they swing into action to save Miles from Universe 42, where he's now stuck with Prowler Miles Morales, and defeat the Spot and save Captain Davis in Miles' universe. Oh, I'm excited. Oh, what a setup for part 2. By the way, I'm a big fan of Shea Wingham, and I really liked casting him as the voice of Gwen's dad. Really cool character design. Very similar to Miguel OHara, by the way, which I wonder if that was an intentional choice. And both dudes, by the way, make some pretty freaking big mistakes when it comes to their daughters. At least, Gwen didn't glitch out just yet. Captain Stacy, though, when he tried to arrest his daughter, I was like, whoa, dude, wrong move. I couldn't believe he wanted to arrest her, causing her to flee her universe and join the Spider Society. But as we learn, when she comes back, he was so affected by that, he quit the force. So she's like, not a captain anymore, huh? Means you're not going to die? And I'm like, at first I was with her on that, but now I'm like, I don't know if it's that easy, Gwen. I'm a little nervous about it. I think he might still be a captain in spirit. By the way, a spirit captain, that's a cheerleading term, so I think that's funny. All right, so anyway, my other theory is maybe Spider-Punk here, aka Hobie, is actually a variation of Miles, as he seems to know about Miles' Venom Blast. I'm like, do you have a Venom Blast, Hobie? I also think maybe that's why Gwen is drawn to him, creating a bit of a love triangle between her and Miles and Hobie, because the Spider Society forbid her from visiting Miles, so she started spending time with Hobie instead. I ended up loving Hobie, especially when he took his mask off. So cool. The amazing character design and animation, wow. And he's revealed to be an anti-hero, my favorite. I love anti-heroes. Fighting the system, here represented by Miguel OHara. Miguel OHara fans, I'm curious, how do you feel about this version of the character? And since when is he a vampire? And why didn't they do more with that? I don't see any good in him at all. I thought it was funny in the opening when at the Guggenheim, the police were like, you don't look like a good guy. And I was like, he does not. Wow. I don't see any good in him at all by the time that we meet him after what he's gone through. And I think that might be the point. But also, I didn't see any good in Jessica Drew, this version of Jessica Drew. When she was tailing Miles' dad, I thought that was horrible, actually. I was like, you should be ashamed of yourself, Jessica. By the way, Jessica Drew is a private detective, and I didn't really see her utilizing that skill set beyond the tale. I was like, you shouldn't be this gullible, Jessica Drew. By the way, why can't they get in any of these movies, why can't they get Ganke right? Is it Ganke or Gank? I always thought it was Gank, but apparently here they were calling him Ganke or Gank. All right, so he is not an annoying character in the comics. He's a delight. But here, the rumor is, I couldn't find out for sure, but the rumor is that Peter Sohn is voicing him, who had voiced him in the first Spider-Verse movie but had been cut. And Peter Sohn is the Pixar director who did Socks the Cat. He's like a really good actor. He might be a better voice actor than he is a director, I'm sorry to say, based on the early reviews for Elemental, which is from him. I will say that Sony has done the best job with the multiverse so far. Take those rewards. Take your flowers, Amy Pascal. Across the board, not just with No Way Home, but with these animated Spider-Verse movies, and also even with Venom, which has dabbled with the Spider-Verse, with the end credit scenes and stuff like that. Although, I found the Spider Society section of this film the least interesting, actually, and surprisingly callous towards the suffering of Spider-Man as a character. I guess that's supposed to be the point, but if Spider-Man, he's always been one of Marvel's most compassionate characters because he is an everyman. So to take that away really doesn't ring true for the character to me in any capacity. I mean, that therapist joke where he's like, let me guess, your uncle died. And I was like, that is not something any version of Spider-Man would ever say. And also, while Spider-Man is about sacrifice for sure, which this movie highlights a lot, Spider-Man is also supposed to be about hope and that the everyman can be the hero. And this movie to me focused a bit too much on the sacrifice and not enough on the hope. A little bit when Miles was on the train, the train to the moon. There, I thought there was some hope there. But I don't know. I don't see a way out for Miles. I was like, will your universe glitch out of existence? Would it be pointless to try and save your father? I'm very curious to see what they decide to do, especially since they are diverging from the comics quite a bit. So we're all going to be surprised. So I hope they highlight the hope of Spider-Man as a character in part 2. So that's my spoiler review of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Very much a part 1 movie, but one that does a brilliant job setting up Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse in part 2, which I think could be one of the best Spider-Man and certainly Miles Morales movies yet. I can't wait. So what do you think? Share your thoughts and theories down below. Subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.